Hello and welcome to Raquel Teaches Code. My name is Raquel and today I'm going to go over how you as a beginner can choose the best code editor so you can start learning coding right away. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going over 4 code editors that are simple and easy to use. All right, from very basic ones to ones with advanced features. And the best part about this is that all of them are free. So let's get started. The very first code editor that I'm going to introduce to you is simply using a text editing application. So in Windows, actually, let me just turn this off so we can see what I'm talking about. So when it comes to Windows, the Windows platform has this. It's called Notepad. And I believe on Apple computers, it's called TextEdit. But yes, you can use a simple text editor to start writing code for developing websites as well as other applications, as you'll see in the other playlists that will be available on this channel. So I'm going to go ahead and show you an example of how you can use a plain text editor to create a very simple web page. And I want you to watch this entire video so you can decide which code editor is best for you, and then you can start going through all the playlists on the channel. Okay, so let's get started. What I'm doing here is I'm just opening up Notepad. I'm using Microsoft Windows version 11, and I'm just going to write some introductory basic HTML. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the opening HTML tag, the closing HTML tag, and again, this is just going to be very simple, so you get the gist of how it all works, right? And so what we'll do here is we're going to create a page that has a simple heading in it, okay? And so when you're creating a HTML file, or any other file really with a text editor like Notepad or TextEdit, what you want to do is that you want to make sure that you save the file in the appropriate format. I'm going to show you what that means. So you're going to go to File and you're going to save. In most cases, you can also hit Control S or I believe Open Apple S. And you're going to give the file a name, which in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and call it index.html, right? Most programming files, coding files will have an appropriate extension. But what you're also going to do is you want to make sure that you select the appropriate file type, right? And so in this instance, we're going to select all files. And this should also be an option on TextEdit. If you're using Linux, you should be able to save it as an all files type as well. And so once I do that, this will allow the file to be saved in a format that can be viewable by a browser. And in terms of when you're coding in other languages, you'll be able to run it as long as you have that programming language installed in your environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop with the name index.html and as a type of all files. Okay, so we're going to save that. And now what I'm going to do to test to make sure that it's actually usable is I'm going to go ahead and open it in a browser. So when I switch to the browser, I can open up a new tab here. And in Windows, you can just hit Control O, right? And when I go to my desktop, I can see the file here. And you'll notice, depending on what browser that you have installed, that your computer may already designate that file as a type to be opened by your browser, as mine did here. This just happens to be my default browser. I click open and voila, I can see a web page. So using a text editor is one of the ways that you can start coding right away without having to install anything, because a text editor is already available on all computers by default. Another option is to use a more full-fledged, so to speak, code editor, right? And so there are simple ones and then ones with a lot more options that are available. So the first one I want to introduce, which is super simple, free, and easy to use also, is called CodePen. And so the way you access CodePen is you just go to codepen.io, as you can see up here, codepen.io. And I already happen to open a free account, right? And so what you want to do is you want to open up a pen. So the way that CodePen works is that it provides an environment where you can enter HTML code, JavaScript code, and CSS code. So CodePen is meant for web development. There are other environments like this available for other languages, but for now, we're just going to go over the environments that can help you do web development, and then the more advanced environments will help you code in other languages as well. So if you're looking to really get good at web development and have a way to save your work online, not have to save it on your computer, CodePen is a great choice, okay? And here you can see on my screen that I don't have any pens available. That's what they call the different projects or files that you open. So if you click on Go Make One, what will happen is this. You'll get a screen like this that's divided into 3 sections. And then the bottom is a preview screen. And so what happens is when you enter code in the appropriate areas, the screen will update accordingly. So let's go ahead and copy what we had in the text file here and see what it looks like when we use it in a CodePen environment. So I'm just going to highlight it, copy, and I'm going to paste here, right? And then when I click another box just to deselect that, look what we have in the preview pane. The same exact thing that we had in the browser, okay? And as you get to learn about CSS and JavaScript, you'll know what they do and you'll enter them in the appropriate places and you will see the results down here. So CodePen is great. It's free. Anyone can use it. You don't need to install anything on your computer. You don't need to configure anything. Another good thing about CodePen is that it integrates with the website called GitHub, which we'll get to in a moment. But GitHub is another great free service that helps coders not only just code online, but be able to share their code. So if you have a GitHub account, you can integrate it with this as well. And as a side note, CodePen also offers free challenges for people to participate in. So that's another great learning resource for practice. Okay, so the third option that I want to present to you for being able to code that is also available online and free is called GitHub Codespaces. So GitHub Codespaces is available at github.com/codespaces. You can open a free account with just your email. And when you go here, it allows you to create what's called a development environment. Okay, and so it has options here where it has templates that you can create. It has templates that you can use to create a development environment, or you can just start with a blank one. So for example, if I go to the blank area and click here where it says use this template, it'll create a development environment. It does take a few moments. As you see here, it'll say setting up your space. And what you'll see is that it looks like a full-fledged code editor. Here's a hint right here of what it's based off of, which I will show you last. But this is essentially a beautiful online version of using Visual Studio Code without having to install anything on your computer. You still have access to things like themes, like it's showing here, to access, to control how it looks on your screen. You can do everything like searching for files, using search control, which is, connecting it to Git, debugging and running code, installing extensions, managing pull requests, all that stuff. And so CodeSpace lets you do that, and you can start typing right away. Like you can just hover over here, create a new file, right? So let's call this, for example, index.html, right? So now I can paste this here, and I've saved it. Now in this instance, I would need to install a preview extension that lets me preview it, but it'll work just the same as all the other code editors, okay? So GitHub Codespaces is an option. And if you want to just go back to the main menu, you can, and you'll be able to manage all the code spaces you have available. Now, the free account at GitHub does allow you to have code spaces free for use, I believe up to 60 hours a month, which for most people who are starting out to learn is more than enough. If you think you're going to be using more time than that to do web development or any other kind of development, and you don't want to pay for their upgraded fees, then just switch over to something like CodePen or a text editor or an editor you can install, which is what I'm going to show you next, which is called Visual Studio Code. Okay, so the last one is Visual Studio Code. So let me go ahead and open that up for you. So you'll see here, Visual Studio Code looks just like the Codespaces because this is what Codespaces is based off of. It's a free program that's available to be downloaded and installed on your computer. There are many other code editors, right? Like Sublime Text and all that other stuff. I happen to love Visual Studio Code. It's free. It's awesome. It's easy to integrate with GitHub, with Git. It's easy to collaborate. It's easy to use a bunch of free extensions that extend the functionality with all kinds of languages. And so you can do the same here. I happen to already have a HTML preview installed, but I'm going to give you an example of how this works. Let me just go ahead and paste that code here. Let me save it. And I'm going to go save it in, I'm just going to call this index2.html. And this is going to allow me to save it as an HTML type. I'm going to hit save. And over here, I happen to have an extension that allows me to view a preview. So when I click on here, I can see the same result. Okay, so those are the different types of code editors that are available. Now let me switch back here. And so what I want you to keep in mind is that the code editor that you choose is going to be based largely on what you feel comfortable with doing and what your goals are. So what I would say is, as far as trying to decide which code editor to use, what you should keep in mind is, ease of use and accessibility, right? If you're a person that is going to be coding on a regular basis and you're going to have your laptop with you, go ahead and install a code editor like Visual Studio Code. If you're a total beginner and you don't want to have to deal with figuring out how to install a code editor, because sometimes they do cause problems, then what you want to stick with is something like the text application like Notepad or TextEdit, or CodePen, where you don't have to start up anything, and it's another way to save your code online. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're more serious about coding and you're getting more into it, stick with the code editors that offer the additional features. And if you want to keep it simple, just stick with CodePen and Notepad. All right, and that's it. So go ahead and decide on which code editor you want to use, because you're going to need to decide so you can start going through the playlist and the lessons plans here on the channel. And one of the things I also want to just say is that I kind of messed that up, but what I wanted to say was, leave a comment below to let me know which code editor you decided on, whether it's one that I featured here or a completely different one that you found online that you like most for your operating system and your needs. Okay, hope that was helpful. Thanks again for watching. Have a blessed day.